Last year, Adidas released the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 1, which was a $500 single race optimized super shoe. At the time, the weight of that shoe was pretty much unprecedented, but this year some of the competition is starting to catch up. So, does the second edition of the shoe stand up to the competition and warrant the super high price tag? Today, we're reviewing the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 2. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're reviewing the Pro Evo 2 from Adidas, but if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full video when you get a sec, so I put a lot of time and effort into these. And if you've been a viewer for a while but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, just to kick us off, some quick disclaimers and disclosures. I actually bought this shoe with my own money, and unfortunately I paid StockX prices, so I did pay resale. I haven't received shoes from Adidas before, but I am in contact with them and hope to be able to review shoes for them in the future. That being said, again, I haven't received anything. I'm not paid anytime I do receive shoes from a brand for the purpose of review. No one gives me talk tracks, talking points, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of the shoe. So again, like I said, the Pro Evo 1 was a single race optimized super shoe. Basically what that means is you're only supposed to get like 50-ish miles out of the shoe at peak condition, right? Now, super shoes in general are not going to be the most durable anyway. Typically, they're only going to last, like, again, peak condition. I don't know, I would probably say like 100 to 150 miles. But this shoe has significantly less advertised durability for a number of reasons, which we'll talk about in this review today. So as such, that's how we're going to be looking at the shoe. From a price standpoint, you are looking at a crazy $500. So same price as last year, but still so much higher than anything else on the market, right? And again, for less durability. Now, it is a crazy shoe, and there are some reasons why, I don't know, some people might consider actually paying that, even not being shoe reviewers. Obviously, for me, I'm motivated to be able to get the shoe, run in it, and review it as a reviewer, and so I'm willing to pay that maybe and even a little bit extra to be able to have that opportunity before a lot of other people, right? But $500, I will admit and say, is crazy for a running shoe, especially when there are competitors that are getting lighter, that are getting as fast, in my opinion, like the R3, and then we've got the A6 Metaspeed Ray coming out later this year as well. Now, moving to the specs, the shoe comes in at 4.6 ounces and 130 grams, so it's just absolutely insane weight. Again, the R3 is getting close. I have to remember what the Metaspeed Ray is going to come in at, but I know that that's getting close as well. But the Pro Evo 2 remains the lightest shoe on the market, at least in the marathon racer category. From a stack standpoint, you have 39 in the heel, 36 in the forefoot, and a 3mm drop. So the drop actually did decrease in the shoe from previous models. There is more stack height in the forefoot. Moving to the fit of the shoe fits short. It's hard with this kind of shoe because you can't try it on usually in person, and so you just have to make an educated guess with the sizing. I actually would half size up, and I would recommend that everyone half size up. The shoe fits like narrow in the midfoot. It fits snug in the toe box, so it's not necessarily like a narrow toe box, but it is really low volume overall. And then the heel fits kind of standard, but we'll talk about it in the upper section. You know, it almost feels a little bit wide in some aspects due to like lockdown issues, but I think that the shoe does run short. My toes have come and hit this side of the shoe, or kind of the front of the shoe there, and so definitely a shoe where I would recommend half sizing up if you can. All right, let's get into the details, first starting with the upper. So this is what is called, you know, essentially it's just an ultra light mesh upper. It is like paper thin. You can see my hand through the shoe. You can see your sock when you put it on. You can see through it entirely. So if you've run in the Evo SL, you know what this upper somewhat feels like from a tongue standpoint. But imagine if the Evo SL tongue was paper thin. So a lot of people were frustrated with both the length of that tongue plus the kind of the bunching of it. And that is like 100 times worse in this upper. To its credit, it is super lightweight and it doesn't feel like it should be durable, but it does hold together. Like, I'm not worried about my foot exploding through the side of the shoe despite it being just crazy, like otherworldly thin. You do get some slight, like basic cushion in the heel. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. The whole purpose of the shoe is to be as lightweight as possible and really optimize more of the underfoot experience. So the upper itself, I am not a fan of. I had, you know, some bloody toenails and blisters on the toes because it fits a little bit short. There is some rubbing. The tongue just bunches up like crazy. So you really have to like loosen the laces up all the way every time you put on this shoe. I use a runner's knot with this shoe, but the laces are short and the tongue is short, and so it doesn't fit that great, and it doesn't give good lockdown in the shoe to where, you know, like the shoe loosens up really easily as you run, and so it doesn't keep you quite in place. I feel like maybe the upper in the one was better. I don't think they changed much. The other kind of weird nuance here is that the spray paint or the paint on the upper, that silver paint you can see is kind of like fading. It rubbed off on my socks. And so the coloration of the actual upper, this ultralight mesh, rubbed off on my socks. And, you know, originally with the one, I didn't criticize the upper, I think, quite as much because I was like, look, they're just trying to get it as light as possible. And I love a light shoe, don't get me wrong. And full disclosure, I do love running in this shoe. Like, for all of the issues of the upper, I do love running in it, and we'll talk about it, right? But, you know, after running in the Puma Fast R3 up there, which is, again, a super light shoe, not as light as this. In fact, this is still significantly lighter, but you still get a really thin upper. It's just fortified a little bit more. And I feel like, hey, Adidas, like, it's okay to be a little bit heavier. Like, this is insane weight. If you can get a better upper, then it's okay to be a little bit heavier. And that's kind of how I feel about the upper. I feel like, you know, a better tongue, even just a little bit longer tongue, one that, you know, let's have have different lace holes where the laces can run through the tongue and keep it in place and keep it flat, right? I think sizing just half size up, honestly, but maybe give a little tiny bit more volume, right? Improve the lockdown in the shoe, because lockdown, to me at least, for 26.2 miles is so important. And again, I don't feel like I had as many issues with the one. I don't know if I'm just noticing them more because there's better competition on the market this year, or if it is actually a little bit worse for me. So that's kind of how I feel about the upper. You know, incredibly breathable, incredibly lightweight, but not the best lockdown, really annoying tongue and lacing system, and you know, just some work to be done there. Moving to the midsole, this is really like what saved this shoe, and it's why I absolutely love the shoe. It's why if I was running a marathon tomorrow, I would actually consider running in this shoe. It's just, you know, let me be clear. So, well, let's talk about the midsole first. So the midsole is Light Strike Pro Evo. It is TPEE, supercritical TPEE, but it is uncompressed. So instead of injection molding, you know, and taking kind of a block of foam and injecting these, like, sometimes nitrogen, but these chemicals into it and allowing it to expand into a mold, what they do is they have these very large sheets of uncompressed foam that have already been injected, and they just kind of blow up, and then they laser cut them, right? And so this foam has never been compressed, right? And that's important because that allows it to be less dense, right? If you think of like water, and when you freeze it and it condenses, it becomes tighter packed, right? It becomes a little bit heavier in a smaller form, right? The same thing is true with these foams. So an uncompressed foam is very airy, very light. And that's how they're able to have this much foam underfoot while still just being like ridiculous. Like, it almost floats in the air when I toss it up like that. The shoe has more cushion in that forefoot. It has a pretty aggressive rocker there, or aggressive toe spring there in the front. It is not stable, right? It is not stable. It is, you know, the foam isn't like overly squishy. It feels actually like a foam block. Like when you hear foam block, or, you know, I have like a foam block that I balance on, where it does, you know, move a little bit and you can balance on it, but like it doesn't just ultimately like squish down as soon as you're standing in it. So you can compress it, but you do have to put force into the shoe to compress. The sensation underfoot of this foam is like the best way I can think to describe it is energy dampening, right? So when I run in the shoe, even when I'm running hard and I'm running fast and I'm putting a ton of energy into the ground, I don't feel like my joints and my legs are being beat up. I feel like it dampens that impact severely, and paces just feel easier, right? It's light, so it's fast. You get good turnover, right? I ran in it this morning. I did 400 on off, like on float intervals, and like even on tired legs, I really wasn't feeling it this morning as far as the overall energy levels. Like I hit my paces to a T and was never concerned about whether I was physically capable of hitting those paces because they just felt so smooth and effortless, right? It's not necessarily like bounce off the ground, explode off the ground. It's light, so you get good turnover, but it very much is like just like a soft, like thump almost when you hit the ground. There's almost like a thump, and it absorbs that energy, and then it's light and you spring off and you explode off the, or not explode off, but you like just glide across the ground. So, you know, it's not the fastest feeling shoe in the world, but the reason why I really like this foam for like that marathon distance is it allows you to relax, right? The marathon, it's so important to stay relaxed for as long as possible, and this shoe just kind of lulls you into that. It allows you to relax. It allows you to kind of stay in pace and breathe, and that's so important for that distance. And so for that reason, like I would highly consider using this shoe for the marathon distance, and I did run a full marathon in the one, and I can attest that yes, like the shoe was so lightweight and it did feel like it was absorbing that impact and whatnot. So again, not the most stable in the world, and I think a large part of that is also kind of the lockdown and the fit. Like you just don't feel super connected to the shoe sometimes. And, you know, in moments where like I did a track workout in the shoe a couple of weeks ago, and I cinched down really tight, I got like really, really attached to the shoe, even kind of coming around those corners, I felt great. Like I felt locked in and I felt like amazing in the shoe. But, you know, I've had a lot of kind of lockdown issues and stability issues with it. And so although it absorbs a lot of the impact, my ankles in particular do get a little bit tired after running in the shoe. Now moving to the outsole is this liquid poured rubber. It's a really, really cool compound. It doesn't look like it's going to be sticky, but it really grips the ground like super, super well. They changed the traction pattern, and I actually think that this decreased the durability of the shoe even more. And I don't think it necessarily added weight, but it does probably increase the traction, as those little grooves are going to grip the ground even more so, where last year's model was just one kind of flat, clean, liquid poured rubber. The outsole actually appears to be holding up better than I thought, but I've got just over 30 miles on this shoe, and I kind of expect the I kind of expect the outsole to just eat away completely by 50 miles because you can kind of see it already starting to nick, and I feel like it's going to end up like tearing one of these rubber strips here. You can also see, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on camera, but right here, there's already impressions, right, of the carbon fiber rods. And this happened with the one for me as well. I think I had about 50 miles on the shoe. Where you could see the imprint of the rods because the foam is compressing underfoot and the rods are kind of pressing through the shoe. So you can see it on the left shoe, and on the right shoe, it's actually even more prominent to me. And the outsole is 100% starting to tear off there on the right shoe. So durability is actually worse in the two. So yeah, I mean, as far as who's this shoe for, right? That's where like you have to start having this conversation, because for $500, the durability, and you know what you're getting into, to be clear, when you buy these shoes, right? You know what you're getting yourself into. You know, if you're going to run like one long run in them, make sure they feel good for your feet, and then go and run your marathon in them and go for that PR, like then and if you're, you know, someone who's at the highest level of running, or you are someone like myself who is not at the highest level, but who very much enjoys running shoes, enjoys reviewing running shoes and testing running shoes, and, you know, due to YouTube revenue from these running shoe reviews, I'm able to invest that back into getting shoes like this so that I can review them. You know, honestly, that's probably who it's for. People who just kind of like see running shoes a little bit as collector's items as well, right? It's kind of the hype of being able to test the shoe. It's the experience of being able to test this shoe Is it worth the $500? Absolutely not. Does that make it a bad shoe? No, it's a phenomenal shoe, right? I would buy another pair of these at $300, even knowing the durability issues for a marathon, right? If I was going to run a race, I wanted to pick a shoe, and this is the one I'm going for, like, I would pay $300 because that's kind of where the competition has set the bar now. But to that point, at $300, you can get the Fast R3. I think you can get the Metaspeed Ray when it drops as well. So, like, I think that there are shoes that are close enough in weight and overall experience to where $500 just isn't justified. So I do think like the Who's It For is restricted to like really like pro level runners going for like lifetime achievements. Maybe if you're trying to qualify for Boston, you're really, really close and you want that final edge and it's worth $500 to you, right? To just get those last few seconds. This is kind of maybe a shoe for you. If you're someone pushing for the Olympic trials, right, and what's the new standard? It's jumping down to 216, I think. Maybe it's 217, but maybe you're at like 217.20, right, and you're trying to shave that final 20 seconds off. That's who this shoe may be worth it for. Otherwise, I do think it's more of kind of a collector's item, and it's more you're paying for the experience of a really, really crazy shoe, right? Would I take this over the R3? Honestly, like I said, it depends. Like I'm split. I really, really like running in this shoe. I really enjoy the miles in the shoe. If I run a half marathon in the fall, which I'm considering, I think I would consider racing in these, depending on how many more miles I get in them before that fall race, right? But, you know, as far as like, is there a mass market for this shoe? I don't think so. I think like running influencers, running shoe reviewers are going to be the primary market for this shoe, if I'm being honest. And just with how hard it is to get, and the fact that like now finally people can get the Pro Evo 1, like it's more widely available. To that end, same thing. Like maybe when it becomes more widely available next year, but I wouldn't pay what I paid for it, is what I would say there. So, you know, just some final thoughts on the shoe. It's mind-blowing. Like, it really is just a super unique and fun and crazy experience running in the shoe. I absolutely love running in the shoe. I hate that it costs so much. I don't hate the upper, but I actually strongly dislike the upper, and even then I love running in the shoe. So again, that tells you about my feelings about the midsole and the underfoot ride. But more so than anything, I love that Adidas pushed the limits of running shoe weight, because that, in my opinion, was kind of an alert to the rest of the brands that like, hey, you've got to step up your game on the weight category, or in you know, with the specs, if you want to compete with us. And I think that, you know, for a while we had the foam wars, right? And I think that everyone, like, the foam wars are still evolving. A lot of people are moving away from PIBA into TPEE, right? And those supercritical foams, right? We have Incredirun with Saucony. You have actually Brooks is now using PIBA, right? You've got the Light Strike Pro foam, which is supercritical TPEE. So you have all these different foams, but I do think that where the top end, and we're seeing it with the R3, we're seeing it with the Metaspeed Ray, we'll see with Nike if they release something, but the Vaporfly is lighter, more nimble, right? Like, I think that the next, like, thing that everyone is tackling in super shoes is weight, and I do think that that is because of the Pro Evo 1. So shoe is revolutionary, so much fun to run in, but man, that price tag. So anyway, if you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, leave me a comment, let me know what questions you have about the shoe, and if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today. Just as always, I'll wrap up, leave you with a question, which is, what's the most money that you would pay to guarantee a PR? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.